Hey, welcome back to the Enduring Churches podcast. You know, Trent, sometimes I just want to go, welcome back to the Enduring Churches podcast. But anyway, we might have to cut that out. But we're glad to have you here with us today. It's summertime. And if you can have a little fun in the summer, what are you going to do with yourself? So Trent, we're going to have some fun today talking about our words and how we use them. Sometimes we use them. It's a silly thing.
Yeah, well, that's true. You're right, Alan. And it's funny because Alan and I have been talking a lot in the last several days, and we've laughed more. I've heard Alan laugh more in the last few days than I have in a long time. So you're right. Summertime brings out the silly in us, and it's all good. So, but yeah, today we're going to talk about biting our tongue, and I think there are times when, man, it's a struggle for me, Alan, to bite my tongue, to not say the things. Thankfully, hopefully, it's the Holy Spirit as a filter over my mouth sometimes, because what comes through my mind is not uplifting, at the least.
Well, fortunately, I've always used my words well, and Trent, you're gonna have to lead us through this one because I've never made. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I think sarcasm's in here somewhere, but Trent, when you bite your tongue, have you ever eating a meal or had some gum in your mouth and you bite your tongue and how it just makes your eyes water and that sting?
Mm-hmm.
I really love the phrase of when we're trying not to say something of biting your tongue, because it does sometimes. There's that little sting of, oh, I really want to say that. I really want to do that. And yeah, it almost hurts not saying it until you're done with that pain. And then you're like, glad I didn't.
Well, and a lot of times I know that when I've done that, bitten my tongue, it's sore for a while, and so there are times, when we don't bite our tongues, that we can mess things up for a long time. And especially as we're talking to pastors that are, dealing with folks, and sometimes they get on our nerves, and we want to tell them off, but we can really mess things up for a long time.
Yes, we can. So, Trent, the Bible talks to us about our tongue. In 1 Peter, it reminds us that we are to keep our tongue from evil and our lips from deceptive speech. In Ephesians, we're told not to let unwholesome talk come from our mouths, but only what is helpful for building up others. And I really love those passages that talk about building others up, because that's really the heart of what we do, is building others up and building people towards Christ. And we lose sight of that sometimes, Trent. So, I know that both of us can relate stories where we've messed up. So I'll share one of mine. I had not been at my church very long, and one of our older persons, a highly respected person in our church, came to me. We're trying to get ready for communion. The worship team is going through their practice, and she comes right up into my ear and starts griping about the music, and I popped off.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I did damage that to this day, almost 14 years later, that I'm still trying to recover from.
Yeah, it's bad, and I've done the same thing, Alan. Sorry, everyone. You're probably hearing sounds in the background because I realized that I hadn't turned my strip on to turn on my computer battery, so it's charging, and all of a sudden then the printer goes off, and it's just nuts. And so God wants us to talk about this, but Satan doesn't want us to talk about it, because, man, we have messed up a lot of times. And Alan, I've been in those positions. I have said things. I've had athlete's tongue. I've stuck my foot in my mouth so many times, and we don't want you to do that. So we're going to talk about today some things to keep in mind, why you should hold your tongue and when you shouldn't hold your tongue.
Yeah, I think there's 6 times that we really need to hold our tongues. There's probably more, and you know what? If you've got some more ideas, put those in the comments, because I think we could talk about more. But these are 6 that I think Trent and I can relate to. in different ways. And so we want to talk about some of these 6 things. And then we want to talk about a positive way to use our tongue, and maybe a way that we've not been good at using our tongues in recent history. And so we want to kind of catch both sides of it. But let's begin with this one. And this one is a frustration to me, because I hear way too many people in ministry starting to get kind of loose here. But that's with profanity and coarse language. Trent, what are your thoughts there?
Well, Alan, I grew up on a farm and a feedlot, and so I was riding pins with cowboys all the time. And so I learned probably way more foul language than most people did. And then I worked in, for Texas Utilities. I was out working with guys and crews all the time, and I learned all those bad things. And sometimes it wants to creep back out my mouth, because it's still in your head, and but profanity and coarse language. One thing somebody told me a long time ago is that when you're using profanity, you're showing your lack of vocabulary, showing your lack of intelligence, actually. And so, especially as pastors, we want to not be using that. There's lots of good words that we can use, and we can encourage people with our tongue instead of profanity, just making them feel bad or cutting them down.
Yeah, I prefer googly moogly, but
great googly moogly.
but one of the things, and I think this is a problem, too many pastors, when we're hanging out with other pastors these days, feel this sense of freedom to start just using language that you probably wouldn't use in the pulpit. And I just want to encourage pastors, we need to be better than that. We really do need to develop the habit of choosing our words wisely, even when our church isn't looking. I think we need to be mindful of the words that we're using, and remember that we're creating habits, and they do come out. I will never forget, I was playing ball. The first time I ever said a really bad word, I popped up a ball. I mean, I just hit a ball, playing baseball, popped a ball up, and out came a word. And everyone watching just stopped and looked at me, because they'd never heard me say that before. And I was humiliated. I know that it just wasn't in my character, and we should have our character. Our character should stand for more than that. And so we just want to encourage pastors, try to, if you've gotten into a bad habit, eliminate it, and it will speak better of you. It's not building people up. So profanity and coarse language is one of them. Where else do we go, Trent?
Well, the next one that we have on our list is speaking in anger. And I think that this tends to lead to the one we just talked about in profanity and coarse language. But, we're all going to get angry at some point. And, you were talking about the lady that came up and was griping about the music. And I have had those types of people in my church that just rub you the wrong way, and you get angry, especially if they come right before you're getting ready to preach, or right before the service, and it's just frustrating. But this is what Alan said about our character is really true. This is especially when you're under pressure, is when that character is going to be tested. When your anger is when that character is going to be tested. And so speaking in anger is a time when you're angry, you've got to hold your tongue. Think about, that's the problem, is we don't think about it. It just kind of spews out of our mouth.
Yes, and it's hard. I mean, the Bible tells us, be slow to speak, and slow to get angry. They go hand in hand. If we would learn to pause before we think. And one of the things that's helped me with that, Trent, a little bit, is just the idea too, when I hear an idea or someone sharing something that I might even love, be slower to speak to that. So if you can create a way of slowing things down in your mind, because I'm always thinking, there's always some idea rattling around, and sometimes maybe they shouldn't be shared anyway, but if we can learn to have a pause button in our minds, and we develop that not just when we're angry, we actually develop it when we're happy. And so learning to be slower to speak in those moments is truly important.
Now, the next point, Alan, is one that you mentioned earlier that you're good at, and I'm just
It's
not
my
smart
spiritual
enough.
gift.
Yeah, sarcasm and untimely sarcasm, I guess, is what we have on our list. And so, Alan, when you think of that, since you are gifted in this, what does that mean?
You know, the Bible uses sarcasm. I've heard communicators say, you just can't use sarcasm. Don't use sarcasm. And it's probably because they use it really badly.
Mhm.
There are times that I use it and I can lighten up a room with it. I can use it really well at times, especially if it's pointed back at yourself.
Yeah,
And that can be highly beneficial and disarming to people. But when we're using sarcasm in a mean-spirited way, and it's easy to do that, and it's easy to get into a habit of using sarcasm when you're frustrated. And the truth for sarcasm is you can't use it when you're frustrated. You can't use it when you're angry. You can't use it when you're discouraged or disappointed. You actually need to use it in those more lighthearted moments. And then recognize that even sometimes then it may go sideways. I mean, it is always a risk, and you should use it sparingly, and especially in public speaking.
that's true. We have it as listed as untimely, so there is such a thing as timely sarcasm. To using it, what Alan said, in a small amount at just the right time, and that's a skill that you develop as a speaker, as a pastor. When you're around groups and you're speaking to groups, it's an important skill that you've got to constantly be working on, sharpening that tool as you would. And so, yeah, sarcasm is a big deal. The next one there, Alan, is really important in our day and time right now, is insensitivity. Right now, as we record this, it is the 100th anniversary of the race riots in Tulsa, and there's a whole lot of frustration and anger among races. There's also all kinds of Asian hate crimes going on, and then you also have the LGBTQ Pride Month going on. All this is going on, and I don't approve of the LGBTQ stance and lifestyle, but I also need to be sensitive when I'm speaking to all these groups, that I need to be able to listen. I need to be able to listen so that I can share the love of Jesus. And if I'm insensitive, I never get the opportunity to share about Jesus, who is love, to these people.
We've made some really bad mistakes with our word choices and in our actions towards people, and we do need to be really careful about how we use our words. I was watching, had the TV on for a few moments this morning, and a commercial came up, and my first thoughts were, how dare this commercial, and then it's just like God's Spirit was saying, do you love lost people? Do you love lost people? Why are you mad? Be sensitive. These are people represented here, and that I need to be more mindful, and I need to be sensitive towards people that God loves, and God so loved the world, which means that's a pretty broad group of people I'm supposed to love.
That's right. Yeah, and that's our calling as ministers for the gospel of Jesus Christ, is to love people, to love those people who need to experience love for the very first time. Real love, not love that uses them. And so being sensitive to, their story, and that means being able to listen to them and putting aside our anger long enough to actually listen to them and to let them feel that they are heard.
Yeah, so Trent, similarly, is when we get in the habit of tearing other people down. I know one area is our spouses. We should never be tearing down our spouse. We've talked about that one before, but I know as pastors, we sometimes too find ourselves in gripe sessions about people.
Hmm. You're right, Alan. It's easy because those people that can push our buttons. Maybe it's somebody in your church, somebody that you have to deal with on a weekly basis or daily basis, and it's like, okay, I can get back at them. I can get the upper hand by tearing them down, and that's it. It's going to come back to bite you in the butt sometime.
And it's okay to talk to someone. If you're a pastor and you're dealing with a difficult church member, it's okay to seek advice and talk about the situation. But don't tear the person down. Don't spend your time figuring out what your response is to this, and that will be helpful, because when you get focused in on who they are and what they're doing, it just tends to go sideways. So put the focus in on your response and how you're going to deal with it. And sometimes it does require a strong response. If you're in a situation, you have a toxic bully in your church, it's not going to be a pretty ending, and we certainly understand that. But make it your goal as much as possible to not tear the person down, but to tear the actions of the person down. And that's a kind of a delicate balance and a hard one to paint. And we could try to explain that in an episode, and that's a hard one to do. It's just hard. You have to kind of feel your way through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, Alan. And it's, we're told to hate the sin, not the sinner. And boy, that is so hard to do, to separate because actions make up people, and that's all we know. We make judgments about people all the time, but ultimately God loved us. He didn't love our sin, our choices, but he still loves us. And so we're supposed to follow that example. And tearing down others is something that we need to be careful of, because we don't want to lose the opportunity sometime in the future to speak life into their lives, into their story, and see them be changed by God.
There's one more, Trent.
All right. Yeah. The last one is gossip. We don't ever do that, do we, Alan?
No. Did you hear what so-and-so said about that? I mean,
yeah. This is a struggle, isn't it?
Yeah. And, I always like to say, it's really not my struggle, but it is. It's always been my struggle, just like it's every church member's struggle. I think that's one of the reasons the Bible always includes it in every list of things that's going on, because everyone can relate to the struggle against not being a gossip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Bible calls it a tasty morsel, like the last best bite, and so and we love, because it feels like it gives us the opportunity to control someone else, and that's not a good and godly thing. It's certainly not the way to show the love of Jesus to someone. And so, yeah, gossip is going to tear up your relationships, and it'll come back to that other person you gossiped about, that, hey, you were talking about them.
Yeah, I was asked the other day, there was a situation, and, hey, Alan, do you want to know who did this? And I thought, yeah, I do. And then I thought, why do I want to know?
Yeah.
And then I said, no, I think I'll go on in ignorant bliss over this. I don't need to know. Yeah. So I think I'll let you know what you know, but we're not going to share that with anyone else. Mm-hmm. And I think there are times that's important. We need to remember that sometimes shutting the conversation down is the best thing that we can do. And it's not easy, but that's what leaders do. Leaders make those tough decisions. And if we're going to lead, we need to learn to shut down gossip, and we need to learn to shut down the prayer meeting gossip too, where we spiritualize our gossip.
Yeah.
We just need to learn to shut that stuff down. And it's not easy. And sometimes we fall victim into it ourselves, but when we recognize it, we need to call it out and deal with it. I mean, bite our tongues. It is not a healthy way to use our words.
Right. So what we just got through sharing with you again are 6 times that we should hold our tongues or bite our tongues. And that is profanity, coarse language, speaking in anger, untimely sarcasm, insensitivity, tearing down other people, and then gossip. And so those are times we should hold our tongue or bite our tongue, Alan. So what do we do? What's the opposite side of that?
Well, we need to use our words when we're protecting someone, and we need to know who we're protecting, and we need to protect the right people, right?
Yes.
Our churches have been pointed out for not dealing with, for instance, sex abuse scandals, and that is a time we need to speak out. We need to speak out in regards to race issues in our culture, and we do not need to be silent in those issues. We should speak out when we're protecting people against the ramifications of sin and lostness by proclaiming the gospel. And so protecting people is the first place that I think we need to look at speaking out more boldly.
You're right, Alan. And ultimately, we want to be able to speak out, to be able to show the love of Jesus. And so we need to be bold about that. We don't need to be ashamed that Jesus, that we belong to Jesus. And so I think that's really important. And one of the things that that you had put in our note, Alan, I think is really important is that unity is a huge, valuable commodity in our churches. And so we want to speak out when it protects the unity of our church. And that may mean that we don't say the things that we want to say, but we also can speak out to protect somebody who may be being judged in our church. So that's important.
Yes, it is. We need to speak out at times for truth and for righteousness and for justice, for all those things. It is important to speak to that. And you mentioned unity, Trent. Yeah, I was reading in just First Corinthians, and the first part of First Corinthians deals so much with unity in the church. And Paul is so passionate about unity. And I think one of his underlying frustrations is that he was being used along with Apollos. They were being used, and they didn't want to be used as a source of disunity. And the church was using them to cause discourse. And he's like, we didn't ask you for this. We didn't want you in this situation. You've kind of made this one up on your own, and stop it. And I think it's important for at times someone to speak up and say, stop it. So many churches would be so much better too when a divisive spirit is told by someone else in the church, just stop it. Just stop it. If you're listening to this and you're a layperson and in your church there's someone who's an antagonist, someone who's always causing disunity, one of the best things you can do is just say, that's enough disunity. We're here for unity. And that can change the nature of a church so quickly and so beautifully when there's a unifying spirit. And we believe that the church should be a unified body, right, Trent?
Absolutely. And it's the Bible says that other people will know that we belong to Jesus by the way that we love each other. And our words are a big part of that love, and the way that we protect people that need to be protected shows love. The way that we don't say the things that maybe we'd like to say shows love. And so we want to make sure that other people outside of our churches get to know God because of the love that we have for each other inside the church. Again, one of the verses that is on our note here, James 3:5, says, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and it is itself set on fire by hell. And so we want you to not have a life that's set on fire. We'd like for you to have a peaceful life. And one of the best ways you can do that is to bite your tongue when you need to, and to protect the lives of others.
Yeah, one of the most important enduring qualities of a pastor is learning to use their words, learning to control their tongue, and speaking at the right time and speaking into the right situation. And it's a skill. You do not learn this overnight. It takes time. It takes work. It takes continual effort. And Trent and I are both still growing in our ability to pick and choose the right times to speak, but learn about yourself. Learn what causes you to start fires, because we've all done it, and we don't want to be guilty of it again. So continue to learn, continue to grow. Be aware of these 6 times that you need to hold your tongue. Be aware of the times that we need to speak out and use our tongues. There are some things in our society that need to burn, and the right fire can be a controlled fire, can be a good fire, and so we do want to remember that as well. So there are certainly times to speak out as well. But we do hope that today will help you and minister to you and speak to your heart. And please share this. Please share this with other pastors. It's so important, again, to use our words properly. So, Trent, we can help in some other ways. How else can we help a pastor?
Yeah, well, our podcast today is kind of an example of sometimes we're a hot mess, right? My computer issues at the beginning and all that, all the noise in the background. You can tell we're kind of a hot mess, and that's just life. And maybe you're dealing with that stuff and you feel like your ministry is a hot mess. Well, we want to invite you to contact us and let us be a listening ear and an encouragement to you. Somebody who's been there, done that. Alan and I have been there, done that on lots and lots of occasions. But yeah, you can contact us by emailing us, alan@enduringchurches.consulting and trent@enduringchurches.consulting. We'd love to get to visit with you some more. You can also find us on our Facebook page or our website, which is enduringchurches.com. And we want to be able to have more than just this conversation with you. And we'd like to be able to be a support and encouragement to you, Alan.
That's right. That's what we're here for. We want to encourage, equip, help you in any way we can. And we would love to talk with you and just have an opportunity to get to know you and know what God's doing in your life and in your heart. Please share some comments. Help us pick up some things that we probably missed today. We're not perfect in this. We are growing as well. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. So thanks for tuning in, and we're excited to share with you some new things next week. So check back in to the Enduring Churches podcast.